Hello, everybody. This is your coronavirus central update for March 17, St. Patrick's Day. It's funny, a lot of people aren't thinking about St. Patrick's Day right now because of the current crisis, but you should still be happy and celebrate if you can. Just be careful where you celebrate. So, I've actually changed the format of the way I'm presenting this because my table's getting too small, and I think that's deterring your ability to view what I'm presenting. So I made a little bit of a change. Actually, I got to change this to 4 while I'm at it. Made a little bit of a change here to help you visualize what's going on. So this is basically a shortened version of the table without all the everything I need to calculate these values. So what I'm presenting here is the prevalence per 100,000. So this is the number of individuals who are active cases divided by the population. Again, the population total is the best possible value I have at this time. And the number of cases, if you haven't been following me, comes from this Johns Hopkins University website on coronavirus, which is very, very good because it tallies values from many different countries. So I highlighted in blue all the countries that have prevalences higher than 10. So that means there's more than 10 people per 100,000 who are infected with this novel coronavirus. So Italy still leads the pack, but Norway's pretty close, so is Switzerland. The reason I chose the countries I did for various reasons. Like Italy has this horrible rate right here. However, and then of course the countries surrounding Italy are of interest to me. We see what they're doing, like Switzerland, Slovenia, Austria. So these are countries that are bordering Italy, and I'm interested in what's going on in those countries as well. And these other countries I chose were in Europe because they're very high in prevalence as well. And of course, South Korea is another one that had a high prevalence rate. But these change from day to day. This is ever diagnosed individuals. So if you've ever been diagnosed with it, so this includes people who've been recovered or died from this disease. This is the change from yesterday, so this would be the change from the 16th. So there's an increase in 4 people per 100,000 in Italy. There's a decline in South Korea. See, I don't even highlight China anymore because they keep on decreasing every day. I think this is another day that they've been decreasing. Norway is increasing by almost a little bit over 1.5 individuals per 100,000. Spain, France, but they're not at the. Well, France is now exceeding in terms of new cases per 100,000. So this is kind of like a measure of incidence as well, number of new cases. And let's see, so I added odds because some people are really into the odds. Like this is based on prevalence. So what are the odds of encountering a person in Italy versus not encountering a person in Italy? The definition of odds is the probability of success divided by probability of failure. So if we define success as whatever it is we're interested in finding, you can see that these odds are pretty low, right? The odds of encountering somebody that has the disease. So if you're a gambling person, we wouldn't gamble on finding somebody who has the disease. Case fatality is a measure of deaths from the disease among those who have the disease or have been diagnosed with the disease. So it's 8% basically of individuals in Italy who have the disease or dying with it. Unfortunately, I can't break this down yet. I'd like to make a comparison between older and younger individuals because that would be that'd be very pertinent. So if we could divide that by age, but we'll be able to do that at some point. I'm not looking forward to that because I don't want people to die. Iran, it's about 6 people per 100. 6 people. This is not per 100,000. About 6%, I should say, not people. 6%. And in the United States, so let's look at the United States where we're at right now. So we have a little bit over 1.25 people per 100,000. That's our prevalence. And then in terms of the odds of encountering a person, is that what I have here? Well, it changed from yesterday. There's been an increase by about, not very much, 0.26 per 100,000. Our odds are very small. This is e to the minus 0.05. That means you're going to the left, moving your decimal point 5 spaces to the left. And here is your case fatality in the US. It's about almost 2%. So it's kind of low here. And within states, I made comparisons by state, and I highlighted the states that have the worst situation right now, which is New York, Washington, and Florida, which now it'll be interesting to see what in states where there's a lot of retirees or people who are over 70, over 60, over 70, over 80. But again, I need those data, and they're starting to come out. As they come out, I'll look at them. But let's see, in New York, you have almost 5 people per 100,000 who are diagnosed with COVID or tested positive for COVID-19. Washington State is about 11 per 100,000, so it's a lot. It's less than 1 in Florida. Let's see. And here you have the, what is this again? Oh, change is it's increasing more rapidly still in Washington. I'd hate to be the person that brought that condition into that nursing home that killed so many people. At the same time, I hope the person didn't know they were doing that, because if they did, they should be liable. They should be held for that. And in terms of mortality, it's 5% in Washington versus 1% in New York and 3% in Florida. So what I did here, so here's the definitions of how I calculated each of those, or the formulas. We're calculating each of those values. I also calculated some odds ratios, because now that I have odds, I can do odds ratios. So an odds ratio is it's a ratio of the odds for 2 different locations in this case, or 2 different whatever. So, and it's a confidence interval. I use a 95% confidence interval because that's kind of a standard confidence interval. You can judge statistical significance, or have an idea of significance if this confidence interval doesn't cross 1. So to cross 1 would mean, so an odds ratio of 1 would mean the odds in one location are equal to the odds in another location, so there's no difference. So if that value is found within your confidence interval, we could say that this odds ratio is not statistically significant. So it's not different from an odds ratio of 1. So even though it may appear to be on just by looking at it, we're dealing with probabilities here. And so here I compared Washington to New York State, and the odds of, so this is the odds ratio and this is the confidence interval, and you can see it does not cross 1, so it does not contain 1, everything's above 1. So the odds of encountering a person with COVID-19 in the state of Washington are almost 2.25 times higher. So that means this is 2.229, 2.25 would be a quarter, 2.25 times higher, almost 2.25 times higher than encountering a person with COVID-19 in New York. So there's still a major difference between the two. So just some definitional points here. An odds ratio of 1 means there's no difference, as I mentioned. Odds ratio less than 1 means there's a reduced risk, and an odds ratio greater than 1 means there's an increased risk. So I wouldn't go to Washington compared to New York, or any other state. Again, these are my credentials. If you're interested, if you have any questions, you can always email me, and I'd be happy to answer it. Or if you want some specific comparisons, or you can post them on my video as well as a comment. Like, can we see California versus somebody, or countries that I'm not including in my map? All right, thank you very much, and stay safe.